Today, we are going to look at a BodyViz brain builder about the planes of the body and learn about anatomical directions. In order for medical professionals to be able to efficiently communicate with each other, standardized vocabulary regarding directions and references to the body have been established. For example, if a doctor tells you they've made an incision on a patient's left arm, are they referencing the doctor's left while he is facing the patient, or the patient's left? Also, where on the arm was the incision made? Was it on the front or the back of the arm? Establishing a precise and consistent language is crucial when learning about anatomy and when working in the medical field. In anatomy, the standard reference for visualizing a cadaver or a living person is termed the anatomical position. The anatomical position is a human body standing upright, feet flat on the floor, toes forward, eyes forward, and arms against the sides of the body with the palms rotated forward. Unless otherwise noted, all references to the human body start from this reference position, called the anatomical position. Once the frame of reference is determined, we can use anatomical directional terms. Just as a polar directional terms of a map, like north, south, east, and west, can be used once the frame of reference has been determined on a map. Directional terms typically come in opposite pairs. Next, we will go over anatomical directions and their definitions. Proximal and distal. Proximal means closer to the point of attachment, and distal means further from the point of attachment. These terms are used when referencing limbs. For example, the proximal head of the femur is part of the hip joint, and the distal end of the femur is part of the knee. Next, medial and lateral. Medial means close to the midline of the body, and lateral means further from the midline of the body. An example of these terms would be the lungs are lateral to the heart, and the heart is medial to the lungs. Anterior and posterior. Anterior means the front of the body, and posterior means towards the back of the body. For example, your intestines are anterior compared to the kidneys, which are posterior to the intestines. And the last directional term we will cover is superficial and deep. Superficial means closer to the surface, and deep means further from the surface. An example would be the skin is superficial to the muscles of the body, and the bones are deep to the muscles. The appearance of an anatomical structure varies based on how that structure is sectioned or cut. In order to understand how a three-dimensional structure has been sectioned, one needs to reference one of the three sectional planes. The frontal or coronal plane is a plane that parallels the longitudinal axis of the body, traveling through the body from side to side, separating it into an anterior and posterior sections. The transverse plane, or cross-sectional plane, is a plane that runs perpendicular to the longitudinal axis of the part of the body being studied. The sagittal plane, or parasagittal plane, also parallels the longitudinal axis of the body, but travels from the anterior surface to the posterior surface. This plane separates part of the body being studied into right and left sections. If the plane divides the body into equal right and left halves, then the plane is referred to as a Midsagittal plane. Anatomical position, anatomical directions, and the planes of the body are important to understanding and communicating efficiently within a lab and the medical field. Understanding the complex 3D relationships within the body can be hard. BodyViz 3D anatomy software uses adjustable planes to virtually dissect and slice through real patient anatomy, showing spatial relationships as seen in this frame builder. Next, let's look at a real-world example where this knowledge would be relevant. You are an EMT and in the back of an ambulance on the way to the hospital with a patient who has had an allergic reaction to multiple bee stings. You have administered the patient's EpiPen, which has helped, but the patient will need further medical attention. You're creating your report that will be sent to the hospital and need to explain the location of the bee stings. In your report, you write that there are 3 stings. One that is distally and laterally located on the anterior of the right thigh, proximal to the knee. A second sting on the posterior side of the body, located laterally on the left shoulder. And a third sting that looks to be the most deep, located medially on the posterior side of the neck. This is an example of how anatomical position and directions can be used in the real world. Want to see more 3D anatomy? Check out BodyViz 3D dissection software, used to make this video from a real patient's MRI and CT scan. Click the link on our page to learn more.